Good evening, Luv Bay. I am welcoming you to the Suffering in Silence program. This is Tia May. I had such a wonderful time with Jan 2 and Fadwa. I came back. So I'm going to be with you guys on Friday evenings, 7 p.m. And then we'll have a replay on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. So for those of you who don't know me, just another quick introduction. My name is Tia May. I'm a minister. I'm an advocate and philanthropist and for victims and survivors of domestic violence. I'm the author of Suffering in Silence, which is my personal story of surviving domestic violence. And I share that with the purpose and the intent of ministering to victims and survivors. My book is available on Amazon if you would like to get it. I'm prayerful that it would be a blessing and an encouragement to you or a loved one. And I want to share what my goals are in general for myself and what I do and what I have in mind for this radio program, Suffering in Silence. My goal is to empower victims and survivors of domestic violence. My goal is to bring awareness to the church community, to help individuals to grow personally in the areas of mental and emotional and spiritual stability so they can move on and be successful. My goal is to help individuals gain support and encouragement, information and skills, and to help them to develop a plan to move forward in their lives. My goal is to provide relevant resources that can be used, to help you be able to put a practical plan together, something that you can put your hands on and actually take and use and go forward. And a huge part of my plan, a huge goal also, is to engage others, including clergy and additional leaders, and to participate in bringing an end to domestic violence. So on tonight, I have with me as co-host Fadwa Yusuf. She has the program Gems of Life. And I also have with me my guest, Pastor May Davis. I want to say for listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or for the co-host, you can email sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. Or if you have resources that you would like to share for other listeners on a national or a local level from your community, from your local organizations, or from your faith community, you can also email sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And so right now, Fadwa, if you would take a moment and introduce yourself and say hello to Luv Bay.
Well, what can I say? Hello, everyone. Welcome. What a beautiful Friday evening to be here in the presence of amazing, phenomenal women. It's a great honor to be around you today. My goodness. Hello, everyone. My name is Fadwa. I am your host of your Monday show, the Gems of Life show, coming to you every Monday here on the Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And I'm honored to be here on her launch, the first show on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Miss Tia May. Ooh, I am super excited to be here with her on her launch. Let me tell you, every Friday, 7 p.m., you got to just join and listen. You're going to be inspired, you're going to be impacted, and you're going to be transformed. So, Miss Tia May, I am honored to be in your company. Thank you so much for having me here with you today. And I would like also to welcome our guest on our show today, Pastor May Davis. Welcome. What an honor to have you in our presence. I've heard you so much. I've heard about you, through Miss Tia May, and I'm honored to be here and finally meet the mystery woman. Welcome.
I'm blushing.
Wow. And thank you, Fadwa. So, Pastor May, before you introduce yourself, I want to say to our Luv Bay family, Pastor May Davis and her husband, Pastor Eugene Davis, they are actually my spiritual parents. They are my covering. They've been my covering for years now. And so I wanted to say that first, that this is my spiritual mother. So she means much to me. In addition to that, Pastor May actually wrote the foreword for me in my book. And so I just wanted to share that Pastor May, before you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, and please tell us your church home. And we need an address because several people have asked me where you are.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, first of all, I am very, very honored to be here on tonight, to be with our spiritual daughter, Tia. We have known her for a very long time, and we even took care of her baby, which became my grandbaby. After she took her back, we had withdrawals for a while. My husband and I didn't know what to do. But I'm honored to be the first guest. There's something about the first. It makes history.
Yeah.
It makes a monumental point of what Tia is doing here in Suffering in Silence. So my husband and I pastor Greater Works Christian Ministry, which is in the heart of West Philadelphia, 5601 Vine Street. We're behind the mall, Haddington Plaza Mall, and we're on the back of the mall, the back entrance of the mall. We're still celebrating this month our 9th church and pastoral anniversary. We have been pastoring this church for 9 years, but I have been in the gospel ministry for 25 years. My husband's been in it for about 15. So we've been, in ministry for a long time. I'm also a playwright. I'm also an author, and the first play that I actually produced and wrote and co-directed was reference to somewhat of something as to suffering in silence for a first lady of a church, because I have seen that firsthand being in church. I've seen women who are pastors' wives who have suffered in silence abuse for their husbands, but yet sitting in the pulpit. I've seen other officials of the church whose wives are suffering in silence, so which caused me to write a play about it. I have 2 books. One is still in editing stage. The first one is using God's word to perfect your marriage, one day at a time is the actual title, and the co-title is using God's word to perfect your marriage. And one that's in the editing stage is called Help Me. And both of them are books. The first book is related to my husband and our relationship, some of the twists and the turns of the first 7 years of our marriage, and how we managed to, with the help of God, to get back into coming back together and restoring our marriage, and the things that we took, the things that I did in order to have our marriage restored, as well as my husband, the things that he did to restore our marriage. This next book, that hopefully it'll be out next year, as I said, it's still in the editing stages, it's called Abusive. That's a Hebrew word for help me for him, which comes out of Genesis 2:18. And it talks about our role as a wife and as a mother. And not only the role of a wife and a mother, but what God intended as a woman to be in the very beginning. So it talks about all that. It talks about my journey as well in the book, the things that I learned. I've been married 47 years. And it also talks a little bit about my journey as a wife and the things that I grew in as a wife. So, and I have a couple women's ministries. I have a ministry called Sisters in the Pulpit. We've grown to about 125 women now. And I'm working on trying to do something to help women who are in any type of ministry, help them to grow, help them to be confident in what they have been called to do. One of the things that I talk about is that we are queens in the king's court, and that we have favor with God because we are queens. We have been born and ordained from the beginning to be queens, and all of us have a calling that is upon our lives, and how to help women get to that calling, how to instruct them, how to get them confident in the things they have been ordained to do in the earth. And I'm a mother. I have 5 kids. I have 3 sons. All of them are in ministry. I have two daughters who are my niece, but because my husband and I raised them, they are my daughters. We've had them since they were little children. My sister died at 37, and my mom had them for a while until she passed on. And so my husband and I took them in. And the one that she was 15, she had a baby as well. So we took care, the three of them, and raised. So we had 6 kids in a 3-bedroom house in West Philadelphia. If you know anything about West Philadelphia, the houses are like, you know. But grateful to where I am now. So we do have a marriage ministry called Evenly Yoked, and we don't call it counseling. We call it marriage coaching because we believe that the dream makes the team work. Okay, or teamwork makes the dream work. Either way, it takes a team to make the dream come true. Okay.
Right.
So I'm grateful to be here on today. I guess enough. I probably can think of something else, but that's enough that I can think off the top of my head.
All right, well, you'll have more time to share. You'll be back. But thank you so much, and thank you, Fatwa. Thank you both for being here. And again, so our topic on this evening we want to cover is this abuse? And so I want to share a passage from Lundy Bancroft's book, Daily Wisdom for Why Does He Do That? This book goes along with the book that he wrote, Why Does He Do That? Encouragement for Women Involved with Angry and Controlling Men. And so I first want to say, Luv Bay family, if you would like to have this book, to the first 3 listeners to email me, put in the subject line, Lundy Bancroft, Bancroft, and I will send the first 3 listeners both copies of his book. This book is a wonderful resource. It's awesome. Other than that, I encourage you to go out and to get this book. So I do want to also say and reiterate that abuse affects women, men, it affects teenagers, college students. Race, economic status does not matter. Sexual orientation, your political status, none of that matters. Anyone can be a victim of domestic violence. So I want to make that clear as we go forward. So the first passage that I want to share before I pose my first question, definition of controlling or abusive partner. For the purposes of this book, when I refer to a controlling partner or an abusive man, I mean one who repeatedly makes you feel devalued. He may do this through verbal abuse and mental cruelty, through pressuring, hurting, or humiliating you sexually, through controlling the money, through cheating on you, or giving lots of flirtatious attention to other women so that you feel like less, by focusing only on his needs and ignoring yours, emotionally, sexually, financially, or in other ways, by using coldness and withdrawal when he doesn't get his way, by turning you into a servant, by chronically ignoring his responsibilities so that you are stuck taking care of things, or through violence and threats. Devaluation and domination take many forms. And again, I want to emphasize that anyone can be a victim of domestic violence. And so my first question, Fatwa, that I want to pose or ask of you, can you speak to the importance of acknowledging and being truthful in dealing with your situation on whether it is abusive?
Oh, Ms. TMA, that was, first of all, thank you for sharing that. You know, in that topic alone and the question that you asked, oftentimes abuse goes unnoticed because we don't acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when we do talk about it, it's ignored. And we're not believed what we said. It's hush hush, right? So I truly believe the first step is acknowledging that it's happening. Mm-hmm. Once we acknowledge that this is happening and actually acknowledge all forms of abuse, not physical, because that's what we're used to hearing. You know, we're used to hearing that you have to see the bruise. Where's the proof that this person is abusing you? Okay, you can show if it's a physical abuse. But like you mentioned, what about emotionally?
Right.
What about mentally? What about socially? There are people who are isolated in their homes. They're not even allowed to go see their own family members, right? You mentioned something about dominating. That hit me. We don't think about that. You know, we don't look at it as a form of abuse when somebody dominates. We don't think about it. So it's really, I think we really first need to acknowledge that abuse is not just physical. There's so many forms of abuse. When you're devalued, I can go back to moments in my life when I felt devalued, when I felt disempowered, when I felt like I was nothing. Basically, I was just picked up from the streets. That's how I was made to feel. But I knew at the time, this is not right. But imagine if you have that constantly, hearing it over and over and over again, and you don't even have that level of awareness, it will break you completely. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for that question. But I think first thing, we as a society, as a community, we really need to acknowledge that all forms of abuse exist. Thank you.
Right. And Pastor May.
I do definitely agree with acknowledgement, but what I find a lot of times is that it's hard for women and people in general to even acknowledge it, because a lot of times they don't realize they're being abused. They know they know they're not being made to feel like they should feel. But a lot of times people don't recognize, because as you stated, it's always people looking for a physical sign that the person is being abused. So people who are being abused and suffering in silence have also been mentally geared to think that it has to be physical before they can acknowledge that they're being abused. Verbal abuse, they think it's just arguments, but they're being devalued by what is being spoken to them, what they're told that they will never be, or what they are not, and what they cannot achieve, having to ask for money. I mean, I've witnessed this, unfortunately, even in the church, where a wife has to ask for money to buy, fast food for their children, and then, they're handed, like, you got 3 kids, a husband and wife, they're handed $10 and tell them go feed 5 people. They don't know that they're actually being abused and being devalued. So as much as acknowledgement definitely is first and foremost, but a lot of people who are in that state don't know that they're being abused, and they accept what's happening to them as being normal, as being, well, this is what it is. This is what marriage is, and they don't have anyone a lot of times to sit down and talk with them, because they're hiding in it too. I mean, they don't want to let people know this is what's going on behind closed doors. They come out, they look good, they drive good, but when those doors are closed, even the children are, if it's a marriage or if there's children involved in any type of relationship, the children are feeling that abuse as well. So it's hard to acknowledge when, you're not thinking that this is abuse. It's just the way it is, or that's just the way that person is. And if you love them, you got to love them past what they're doing to you. And, I love them so much. My husband and I have sat in coaching sessions, and we've told them before they even said, I do, this is abuse. This is control. Why do you want to proceed in a relationship of matrimony when this is already a sign of abuse? And they said, well, I love them. I love this person. I believe they can change. People think that they can change people. But they can't change people. And when we're sitting in front of a couple, they really think that they can change each other,
right.
But they can't. So as much as we would love people to say, okay, this is not right, as you have said, you said that you knew it wasn't right, you felt that it wasn't right, you felt devalued. But what about the ones that don't know? They think that this is the norm.
Right.
We're just having an argument, but they don't know they actually are in a very serious abusive relationship.
Right. And so I agree. Some people don't know or feel confused about abuse, because it is often thought that abuse is only physical, and they truly wonder if they're being abused because they're not being hit. But we do know that abuse takes many different forms, which includes verbal, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, financial, and physical. And I've said before, any type of abuse, no matter what it is or where it starts, all of it leads to physical abuse if it is not stopped and checked and dealt with.
Absolutely.
And so I want to share some red flags and warning signs from the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And so these are some points, some questions to think of, to go over, and to ask yourself. Is your partner doing these things? Telling you that you never do anything right. Showing extreme jealousy of your friends or time spent away from them. Preventing or discouraging you from spending time with friends, family members, or peers. Insulting, demeaning, or shaming you, especially in front of other people. Preventing you from making your own decisions, including about working or attending school. Controlling finances in a household without discussion, including taking your money or refusing to provide money for necessary expenses. Pressuring you to have sex or perform sexual acts that you're not comfortable with. Pressuring you to use drugs or alcohol. Intimidating you through threatening looks or actions. Insulting your parenting or threatening to harm or take away your children or pets. Intimidating you with weapons like guns, knives, bats, or mace. Destroying your belongings or your home. So these are just some of the red flags or warning signs that you can look at and look at your situation and evaluate your situation to see if any of these things apply to what you are going through. I remember after a service that I spoke at once, a woman approached me. I mean, people usually approach me after I speak, but this particular service, a woman approached me and she said, thank you. Because until that moment, she didn't have clarity on what it was that she was going through. When she explained her situation, she said that her husband had negated his financial responsibility. They lost their house. They had 3 children. And they had to move into her parents' home, including her husband, to live in their basement because he wouldn't care for the family financially. He just out and out just completely gave up financially on the family. And she explained that she didn't know what it was that she was going through. She didn't have a name to put to her situation, and she had never heard of financial abuse before, that service in that moment. And she started to understand what it was that she was going through. And she felt better because now she knew how to move forward and deal with it because she had never heard the words financial abuse. And she was able to begin to put a plan together on how she needed to move forward. And so I know and understand that some individuals don't recognize abuse because they don't know the signs or they don't have a name for it. They can't describe it. Like it's hard to describe when you say he's mentally abusive. It's hard to describe somebody when they're playing with your head. They're gaslighting you. They're playing with words. It's hard to describe that. And then when you're trying to put your words together and you're trying to get it out, they're confusing you on purpose even more. So it is harder to do that than it is to say, well, he hit me or she hit me and you can see this bruise because she just broke this vase in my face and you can see that. But so that is an instance. But Pastor May, can you speak to the fact that also some people don't recognize red flags or dysfunction because they've become normalized to it. It's normal to them because it's what they've grown up in. So can you speak to that for a moment, that it is dysfunction and they don't know that it's dysfunction because that's all they've seen and known all their lives.
Absolutely. When you grow up in an environment like that, 9 times out of 10, you'll get into relationships similar to what was experienced as a child. And then you become another victim of how you grew up, and now you're in it as an adult. And you tend to pick up the same nature of what you grew up in. And so, again, it becomes like it's normal. I grew up in it, and if I'm in it, well, I grew up in it, so, that's just the way it is, Even speaking for myself personally, my mom and my dad, they were very abusive. My dad was abusive to my mom, financial abuse that you talked about. He withheld the money. When I became a teenager, I had to track him down to make him give my mom money, that sort of thing. And her hands were tied because she didn't have enough money, to take care of the needs of the house. But after I got married, one of the things that my husband and I, when we would argue, I would always withdraw. And we could never get anything settled or agreed upon, because I always felt like when we argued, it would lead into a fight. And I never told him why I experienced. Now, he wasn't abusing me. We were just having, marital arguments where he's trying to pull stuff out of me, and I can't explain to him why I'm withdrawing. But I just felt like if we argued, then we were going to go into a physical fight, which it never did. We never went into a physical fight. But because of the way the environment in which I came out of, it always ended up that way. So I felt like if I would stay quiet and not say anything, then I could avoid a physical situation. And if I stayed quiet, then I didn't have to worry about the argument. But we weren't able. So I didn't know how to have an intelligent disagreement, because I always felt like it would lead into a fight. So when you don't get those things corrected, when you're in it and grow up in it, your communications will become obscure, because you don't know how to have intelligent disagreement, because your focus is what happened as you were growing up, or the environment from which you came from. And if you don't get that corrected, if you don't figure out, you don't talk to somebody about it, and it's not addressed, then all of your affiliation or associations, wherever you have to deal with any type of controversy or conflict, you won't know how to deal with it. And you'll withdraw, and nothing will get done. So your environment can play a really, really big part on it. You won't know how to communicate. You won't know how to be objective and tell people if you feel as though it's not right. You won't sit there and hold it and afraid of being in an argument because you don't agree. So your environment growing up, the people you're around, can really take its toll on being able to communicate with society and with your, people that you are in contact with, whether it be other family members, your job, your church, or your friends. You'll always be on the I guess, for lack of a better word, the butt end of everything, because you don't know how to articulate or how to be assertive enough to say what you need to say without thinking that you're going to get into a big argument and then be fearful that it's going to turn into something physical. Right. Is that answer?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And I just want for our listeners just to say again, remind you guys that we are on the Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. This is the Suffering in Silence program with Tia May. I thank you guys for being here with us again and again. We are rising out of the ashes together. So I want to go through some more red flags and warning signs before I pose my next question to you, Fatwa. So the next list of questions that I have is from IDAS. This is an organization in England. So again, if your answer is yes to any of these questions, you need to evaluate your situation. Does your partner or someone close to you criticize you, put you down, or call you names? Are you frightened about how your partner will react if you get into an argument? Are you frightened of your partner when he or she has been drinking? Has your partner ever hit you? Does your partner complain about your friendships or family members or stop you from seeing them? Does your partner ask you to do things you are uncomfortable with? Are you ever worried that your children are seeing or hearing things they shouldn't be? Has your partner ever forced you to have sex with him or her or with other people? Has he or she made you participate in sexual activities that you were uncomfortable with? Has your partner ever kept you short of money so you are unable to buy food and other necessary items for yourself and your children? Has your partner prevented you from continuing or starting college or from going to work? Does your partner constantly check up on you or follow you? Has your partner ever tried to control you by telling you you could be deported because of your immigration status? Has your partner ever threatened to take your children away or said he or she will refuse to let you take them with you or even see them if you left him or her? And there's, Fawa, before I pose my question to you, there's one more passage that I want to read from Lundy Bancroft. Which kind of controller is he? Almost everyone gets a little controlling sometimes. We all can get caught up in wanting things done in a particular way. Here's how to fold the towel. Here's when to shift the gears. We want to say, what are you doing? Here, do it like this. So when does controlling behavior become a problem? There are people whose control is a bad habit, annoying controllers, and people whose control is a style they are committed to, coercive controllers or bullies. How do you know which category your partner fits into? The key difference is that the annoying controller doesn't retaliate against you when you tell him to stop controlling you. The coercive controller, on the other hand, is angry when you resist his control, acts entitled about it, and gets you back for standing up to him. And if you continue to refuse to give in, he gets nastier and nastier about it, saying that your resistance shows all kinds of things that are wrong with you. Some of the most common ways in which a coercive controller retaliates includes putting you down for not wanting to do it his way, e.g., that's ridiculous, that's stupid, you don't know what you're doing, and so forth. Being cold, distant, and irritable after you resist his control. Blaming you later. Well, if you'd done what I told you to do, this wouldn't have happened. Or turning mean or scary because you won't do what he tells you to do. In short, if you ask yourself, I wonder whether I should just give in because I know he's going to make the day hell for me if I don't, then you are involved with a coercive controller.
Wow.
And so, Fawa, my next question to you, I think it's a simple question, but I know it's a lot. What would you say to those who are trying to figure out or define their situation on whether or not it is abusive or problematic?
Let me tell you, my heart is beating fast just hearing that. Just hearing it has taken me to some areas in my life that I completely forgot about. And I'm looking back and I'm like, oh my goodness, I was right in it. And I never even knew, right? Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, for anyone going through this right now, if you've been listening, there are certain things that you can, there's red flags for sure. we have, especially as women, we have this thing within us, that sixth sense, that instinct that tells us something is off. But oftentimes, what do? We silence it. We silence it with, he's going to change. It's going to get better tomorrow. We ignore it. So we always have the sixth sense. So I say to notice it and to have the awareness is just to pay attention to that sixth sense. We feel it in our gut.
Yes.
I felt it. I felt it. And this is where we also have to take accountability and ownership. That also, depending on where we came from, we come from places, environmental, it could be generational. We come already wounded. We come already with our own wounds. We come broken. And we enter into this relationship thinking that it's going to get better. And guess what? There's going to be triggers after trigger after trigger after trigger. Mm-hmm. And while we are in that relationship, those wounds will come to surface. And those wounds are those that we ignored in the past, right? I want to give you a quick example. A few years back, I was going through my own divorce. Everybody in town came to me wanting to make peace and wanting me to reconcile with my husband at the time. And I stood firm and I said, no. This woman came up to me and she looked at me and she opened up her mouth and she said, do you see this missing tooth here? It's from my husband. I'm missing a tooth. And I'm here with my husband with 5 kids. She said, I never left. But you, he doesn't hate you. You have no reason to leave. This is what I'm talking about. We know when things are going wrong. Let me tell you, there are very few of us who don't have that level of awareness. The truth is, some of us do know, but we choose to stay in it. For whatever reasons, and I've seen it, for whatever reasons, it could be children, it could be finances, it could be the name sake. There are people who just love to have that name for the sake of the name. I'm married. Or because of society, whatever it is, we all have reasons why we stay in it. But end of the day, we have the gut feeling. We have that thing in us that says, something is off. And I wish I had listened to that many times, but I silenced it many times. So the answer to that is we need to awaken our senses and pay attention to that sense, that sixth sense that tells us something is off, and listen to it. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. So, Pastor May, I want to ask you, and once I ask you this question, I want to share some international resources. But I know personally that you and Pastor Davis have counseled not only women, but men. And so, Pastor May, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to a man who is right now going back and forth in his spirit? He's going back and forth in his mind about his situation, on whether he's being abused. And we know that men have an added layer of, I want to say shame, because they're men. What would you say to a man in this situation who needs to leave a situation or stand up for himself or get help? What would you say to a man?
Well, first of all, in our conversation, I would kind of get a feel of background, what's going on. And in some of the certain instances, I would ask, how did that make you feel when that was said to you? When that action took place, how did you feel? How did it make you feel? Did it make you feel good, or did it make you feel bad, or did it make you feel embarrassed? And if all of those things in our conversation said, well, it didn't make me feel good, I was embarrassed, I was really hurt, So the next question I would ask, would you do that to someone? And if the answer is no, well, then let us kind of figure out, are you being abused? Do you think you're being abused? trying to get them to answer some of the questions about what's taking place in the relationship, and try to get them to acknowledge that what's going on or what's happening to them is not right. It is abuse. It doesn't make you feel good. If you're constantly not feeling good by some of the things that are going on in your home, if you're constantly, as some of the flags that you talked about, if some of these flags are there, to tell them outright, if you don't know it and you're not recognizing it, I would say to them, these are signs of an abusive relationship.
Right.
And then turn around and ask them a question, do you think that you're being abused? And sometimes they will say, I'm not sure. Sometimes they will say, no, I think this is just the way they are. And then I would begin to kind of dig into their childhood, to kind of find out, okay, well, what were you like as a kid? What, your mom or your dad, especially the dad, because being a man, a lot of times men, women too, will pick up traits of how they were treated by their fathers or the male image that was in their life when they were growing up. And it could go either way. If the man was passive and the mother was aggressive and was always bossing the father or the male image in their life, they'll take up that passive image as well, because a lot of times we emulate what we live with.
Right.
So I really would ask about their background. Was there any male image? And if there was, what was the male image like? And then begin to ask them questions about the relationship, how it made them feel. Did you feel it was right? So try to go down a list of getting them to actually say what's going on, and then let them know. Ask them, do you think this is abuse? And if they don't, then I would begin to go down the line what abuse looks like, right, and try to help them to recognize it, and then get them to acknowledge, I'm being abused. And right, it's hard for men to do that because they got this macho thing on, I can take anything, or they're ashamed of what's going on and they don't want to say anything, or they don't want to. So it's kind of hard sometimes. So I have to do, for men, I have to kind of mother them and kind of let them be the mother to them, and kind of have their confidence enough to know that, boys love their mother. If their mother didn't abuse them, but sometimes they got mothers that abuse them as well. Right. So it depends on what I get from them growing up, what their background will be what approach I would use in order to make them feel comfortable and confident enough that they can share.
Okay.
I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. So now, Luv Bay family, I want to share some international resources, and then I want to share a couple of more passages from Lundy Bancroft's book. And the book, again, Daily Wisdom for Why Does He Do That? I encourage you all to get this book, both books. They are very, very encouraging and helpful resources. So the first resource that I want to share is the Canadian Women's Foundation. The website is canadianwomen.org. The phone number is 1-866-293-4483. The next resource is IDAS. This is in England. It's a specialist charity in Yorkshire supporting people affected by domestic abuse and sexual violence. The website is idas.org.uk. The phone number is 03-000-110-110. The next resource is Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition. The website is www.miwsac.org. The phone number is 1-877-338-5555. 995-4800. The next is Polaris Project, Polaris. Polaris Project, National Human Trafficking Hotline. The phone number is 1-888-373-7888, or you can text the words Be Free, BEFREE. You can text those words to 233-733. And their website is www.polarisproject.org. And the last resource I have to share is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The website is www.thehotline.org. The phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And again, Luv Bay family, if you have any questions for our guest or co-host, you can email sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And also, if you have any resources that we can add to our list to share to listeners, please email those resources in. So just a couple of more passages that I want to share from Lundy Bancroft. Naming the effects of what he does. Being involved with a destructive partner can take more of a toll than you realize, especially while you are still living with him. It's hard to observe what's happening to you. People on the outside may have noticed. Someone who cares about you may have said, "I'm concerned about you. You don't seem like yourself to me." And if they have, you've probably brushed them off, responding, "Oh, I'm doing fine." But are you? Ask yourself these questions. Emotionally, am I upset or angry about him a lot of the time? Am I tense and worried about how he's doing or how he's going to react to things? Physically, am I as healthy as I was when I met him? Is the stress showing up in my body in any way? Aches, pains, weight gain, weight loss, lack of energy? How am I sleeping? Life direction. Have I let my dreams and ambitions slip into the background since I've been with him? Does he discourage me from pursuing my own goals or try to change them into ones that he thinks will be better? Spiritually, have I lost my connection to my deep beliefs? Am I reluctant to share my real beliefs with him? Socially, am I struggling in my connections with friends? Have I distanced myself from relatives? Perhaps because he said they aren't good for me. Does he make excuses not to see people or to keep me from seeing them? Sexually, am I feeling attractive? Are my sexual needs being attended to? Is he making me feel bad sexually? A relationship is supposed to make you feel good. It should make you stronger and more energetic and help propel you toward your goals. Is your relationship doing the opposite? Do some writing in your journal in response to this question, striving to answer honestly. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves questions and sit down and really be honest with ourselves. And if you journal, which I recommend, that would be a great idea. It really does something powerful when you see your own words in writing before you and you read them back to yourself. My next question that I would pose to you both, Fadwa, I would ask you first. Can you speak to the aspect of denial and the effects that it will have if you continue to stay in a situation that is hurting you, tearing you down mentally, emotionally, and physically, the effects that it will have on you eventually?
Thank you for that beautiful question. Most definitely, one of the biggest effects that it will have will be you being disconnected and detached from yourself.
Yeah.
I think the biggest effect will be you lose who you are. You lose your essence. You lose who you are. completely. The second part, I would say, for those who have children, you are role modeling what their life is going to look like. You are showing them this is okay. You're normalizing and you're telling them this is okay. By living it and staying in it and showing and going through all that, you have a daughter who's growing up thinking it's okay to be treated that way. You have a young boy who grows up thinking that's how he's going to treat the woman. So we really have to think hard. The effects, it does not end with us. It's never ending cycle unless we do something about it. So the effects can be generational. And if we don't stop with ourselves, we don't stop it now, not only our children will pick from it, it's going to be completely a recycled, the repeated patterns is going to continue. The journey will still continue. So the effects, you lose who you are, you lose yourself in it. But also, it's a long, long journey for everyone involved who are close to you, because they get to experience in your pain and suffering. And remember, hurt people hurt others. Thank you.
Yes. And Pastor May?
One of the things that I have tried to, even for myself, to model myself with this particular saying, and I've shared it with others. Sometimes you have to teach people how to treat you. And in someone's case like that, if I am talking to them, I have some sort of relationship or coaching them, one of the things, especially if it's something I can see visibly, see that the changes that have taken place because they have been in this abusive relationship, is to begin to kind of help them to own what is actually happening to them. Again, the acknowledgement of what's happening to them, by asking them some questions. Again, what's your health like? Can you sleep? What do you like during the day when you're working? What's your Are you able to focus? Really ask them some key questions to kind of help them see that this relationship that you're in, you need to acknowledge that it's not healthy. It's not healthy mentally. It's not healthy physically, all the stuff that goes on, some of the things that you've talked about this evening, some of the warning signs that you have given, to really kind of help the person come out of denial that they're in it, and help them to acknowledge it and own, this is really happening to me. I am really in an abusive relationship.
Right. And
get them to actually own it, realize it, and then begin to help them formulate a plan.
Right.
A plan of escape. Okay? Because at this point, if you've been in it for a long time, you need a plan.
Right.
You need a plan of escape. You need a plan for finances. You need a plan for, if you have children, how to also move your children out of the relationship. And, reading your book, you had a plan, okay?
Right.
Which we helped you with.
Right.
We helped her with her escape plan.
Right.
So any of you don't have her book, you need to get the book and see how Pastor Eugene and I helped her with her escape plan, But you need a plan. You need a plan. Even if your plan is to call any of those places that were mentioned on tonight, yes, wherever you are, what country you're in, where you can call in these places and say, I believe I am being abused. Right. But you sometimes need somebody to help you to recognize you're being abused.
Right.
So that's been some of the things that we have done, to kind of help people acknowledge it, recognize it, and then talk to them about a plan. What I find most of the time, if it's couples that, especially those that don't have any, most of the time it's the women who don't have any finances to kind of help them with that escape plan,
Right.
And so they really need some resources and some help. And a lot of times they're afraid to move forward with that escape plan, but they need help. They need guidance on how to escape,
right.
And I mean, I have said to one young lady, if you don't escape, one of y'all are going to be in the hospital, in jail, or dead. That's
right.
just how bad it is. So, they did escape. They did get away. You escaped. You got away. So we find ourselves sometimes in a position where we're guidance and escape plans, helping people escape out of where they are and helping them to acknowledge it and say, I am being abused, and how to get out of a bad situation, especially if they've been in it for a long time.
Right.
And then kind of help them and guide them, even giving them information as to, now, you're in it and you have a large number of resources that we can now direct people to. We don't always have to be the escape plan people.
Right.
We now have, at that time we didn't have any real resources that we had. We really just had a heart for these people, and some of them we knew we knew was going through these things, and it wasn't until they acknowledged it to us that we could really say, okay, now we've known it for a long time. We're just glad that you came to us. We can tell you, you're being abused, and not so loud in that way, but really kind of help them to say, this is abuse for you, and really began to help them find resources or a way to get out of what they are in so they can live. Because a lot of times, so many people, women and men, somebody dies in that relationship if they don't get out. Children get hurt. I mean, you hear it on the news all the time. Husband kills his wife, kills the kids, and turns the gun on himself. And there are many reports in the police department that there was domestic violence, or they had to keep coming to the same house. The police visited our house every other Friday. After my dad got paid, you could expect a fight in the house. So the police knew our address. You begin to see these things, and when you grow up, for me, I had a heart for mothers that had children, and I guess that's really kind of affected me with you. Knowing what my mom had gone through, and you had children, and really being empathetic and sympathetic to everything that you were going through, to the point that I wanted to help you, and my husband and I both wanted to help you, so, and help anybody else which had come our way, to help them say, you need to get out of that, and get out of it now, and whatever we could do, we'll help you. So far, we haven't gotten any retaliation from the men.
No, there will be no. Don't even say that. That's not even a joke.
I know. Well, we sort of kind of did in a way with one young lady, but it wasn't no retaliation. What it was, just a phone call. Where is she? And of course we couldn't give any. But so I don't want anybody to take that wrong. If you help somebody, they're gonna come at me. I don't want you to think that, because that's not what I mean at all.
No,
I don't want to give that impression at all. So let me retract that, because I don't want nobody to think that's what happened.
Well, oh my goodness, the hour has gone by, and so Luv Bay. I am just, wow, I can't believe the hour went by that fast. So, Luv Bay, the books I am going to send out to those who requested them. I will be sending them. Again, this is Suffering in Silence with Tia May on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. I thank you so much, Fadwa Yusuf, for being my co-host on Tonight, Fadwa's show is Gems of Life, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Pastor Mae Davis of Greater Works Christian Ministries, you will see her again or hear her again. Pastor Mae will be with me next week. She will be co-hosting with me. So we will have more for you next week. I thank you guys for tuning in, for listening. And I just want to say that we are here to encourage and support each other. You guys are as much of an encouragement to me as I want to be to you. And again, Luv Bay, we're rising out of the ashes together. Have a good night, all of you.
Good night.
Night.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful, Miss Tia.